Sunday noon Central / 1 p.m. Eastern games. Starting with my Green Bay Packers. They are favored by 1.5, going to Atlanta to the Falcons. So the Falcons are the underdog here. Where are you going with this one? Both teams 1-0. So where are you going with this one and how much?
This game was a tough one, and I think the spread kind of really indicates that. I didn't really know who to fully pick at first, but then the more I thought about it, I do think that Green Bay had like a really good performance last week, but I feel like maybe that's kind of artificially inflated the spread a little bit for them. I'm not sure I'm quite ready to fully commit to Green Bay being like a really strong team as of yet. I did like what I saw, but I'm just interested to see how they go through some adversity, and I do think that this Atlanta secondary might actually be able to pose some problems. We saw that happen to Bryce Young last week. And although this, Jordan Love does technically have a lot more experience than Bryce Young because he's been in the league for a lot longer and being able to learn behind Aaron Rodgers. I don't know, just you got some really good players in that Atlanta secondary that I think can cause some problems for him. And I think that Aaron Jones is questionable, if I'm not
hamstring.
mistaken.
He did not practice. As we're recording on Wednesday, so that's an important note. Yeah. He did not practice. Christian Watson did not practice either, both with hamstring. Yeah. And I think there was another key player.
I believe Quay Walker
concussion, so that's big because he's main. I know.
Yeah,
normal inside linebackers.
So there was just a couple pieces around the team that I was looking at the injury report earlier when I was thinking about this game, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know. I could see a world where Atlanta and that really heavy run attack that they're going to want to employ could work. I do think that, this Packers team has worked defensively to address the run defense, but I'm still a little skeptical. I got to really see them continue to prove it over and over. They did have a solid showing last week against the Bears, albeit the Bears are playing from behind a lot. So the game script was a little different. But yeah, I don't know. I feel pretty confident in Atlanta here. I think the two-headed monster of Algier and Bijan can make something happen. And I'm going to actually take the Falcons not only to cover, but to win this game. And I'm going to put 150 on it.
All righty. Well, I can't blame you for that because I'm going with the Packers, going with them for 50. It's tough because, like you said, Atlanta, I think they have a better O-line than Chicago. Obviously, I think quarterback-wise, especially running-wise, obviously advantage Justin Fields. And then running backs, advantage Atlanta. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think this will be a true litmus test for the Packers' run defense, especially if no Quay Walker as well. That's concerning in regards to, can we finally stop an elite run offense? We'll see. But I think because of how risk adverse Atlanta is, especially in the past game, I mean, we've noted it, and every fantasy owner that has an Atlanta pass catcher probably knows. I just think that Green Bay will know. I have a feeling that they'll have some clues on what they want to do in the pass game, and the Packers, I feel like, can match up with their receivers and really just slow the box, make Desmond Ridder beat them. That's what I'm hoping we do, but I could be very wrong. It may not matter. Maybe, this is, like I said, a great offensive line, especially run blocking, so we may get run all over again, like I've seen a million times. And on the flip side, I was really impressed what I saw with, at least in regards to just executing the offense last week, and especially without Christian Watson and with a bunch of new pieces. So it does suck that Aaron Jones may miss this game, and I expect him to just, hamstring, and he's a guy that's built upon his agility and speed. And even if he does play, not going to be 100%. And Quadzilla, A.J. Dillon, wasn't amazing last week, but hey, maybe it's just, I felt at times that, not saying the O-line hates him, but it just felt like whenever he did get his chance is when the Bears, broke through. But yeah, maybe it's a little bit of copium. I got no real great. I just trust Jordan Love a little bit more. I know we've only seen him in 2 games, but it just seems like him and LaFleur already have a good idea of, hey, let's take care of the ball, just be smart with it. We'll take our shots when we need to. They had some good ones, the one to Musgrave last week and such, and it was good to see him, Luke Musgrave, rookie, tight end, which is rare for Green Bay, to already be involved. So hopefully he continues to be involved. So I'm buying that hype. I may be wrong come here next week, but I am scared, which is why I'm only putting $50 on my Packers, just because, I seriously thought about Atlanta too, and especially it being at Atlanta is just tough. And We talk about it all the time. We know Arthur Smith. He's going to make this an ugly game that I'm going to hate watching and be stressing until the very end. So we'll see there. Obviously, huge difference, as it's a $200 difference between John and myself. John going with the Falcons for 150, and I'm going with Green Bay for 50. So we'll see how that ends up. Already having some big potential shifts to our money lines for the start of week 2. Now we go over to Buffalo, where the Bills are coming off that tough loss Monday night against the Jets. They are at home. They are favored by 9.5, hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders coming off that win against the Broncos last Sunday. Who do you have here, and for how much, John?
All right. Well, obviously Buffalo loses a tough game last week, and the Raiders, they win a close one. That said, for the Raiders, I believe Devontae Adams has not practiced this week, and that kind of worries me in terms of, he's out. He was out today with a foot injury. Once again, recording as of Wednesday. Who knows how long it keeps him out? Also, the Bills secondary is good, but they don't quite have a Pat Surtain who is able to really shut down Adams, assuming that Adams can play. So if he does play, I think that he'll have a better performance than last week. But that's, once again, an if. And if he's not there, I don't know how much I really believe in this Raiders offense against a very motivated Buffalo team. I think they're going to want to avenge what happened last week. I think the defense was looking very strong, albeit it was against Zach Wilson. And I think that Jimmy G is a better quarterback than him. But I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a revenge game for Buffalo. It is a big spread, which is the part that makes me nervous. But I'm going to take Buffalo, and I'm only going to do 40 because, like I said, the big spread makes me a little. Well, it feels questionable, but at the same time, I could see Buffalo maybe struggling, but I feel like they're too good of a team to come out and struggle twice. So I'm going to play the odds that they come out all firing on all cylinders.
I believe Buffalo will win, but I'm going with the Raiders. I think they cover at least. I'm playing the dangerous game here of both sides of the fence. I'm going with the Raiders for 50. I think that they'll be able to run the ball effectively against Buffalo. I suspect they're going to try to slow this game down and really put the pressure on Josh Allen, the offense, for every single drive, because the Raiders are going to be eating clock with Josh Jacobs, because we saw last week. Less than 100% Breece Hall was able to do major damage against Buffalo, and that was when everyone in Buffalo knew that they were going to be running the ball. They were extremely predictable. The Jets is run on first and second down, and then if it goes to third down, especially if it's third and medium to short, I guess we'll throw a Zach Wilson. But otherwise, it was pretty obvious. It didn't. Even then, we saw Breece Hall have a great game, and obviously Josh Jacobs much healthier, and for the Raiders, obviously, they have a much better quarterback right now, like you mentioned. Jimmy G, probably better than Zach Wilson, but does scare me still, because Garoppolo still, like some of these other quarterbacks in his kind of range, just every now and then makes it a dumb decision, forces a throw, thinks they're Aaron Rodgers for a minute, and so that's my only fear, because Buffalo is really good at kind of fighting your tendencies, and we know Jimmy Garoppolo typically over the middle and such. So I feel like it's one of those things that's scary, but nonetheless, I'm taking the Raiders to at least cover. And for the Bills, like you mentioned, although the Raiders don't have a lockdown corner, I just feel like they will be smart enough to say, okay, let's double digs, and see who else can beat us, and see if we can make Josh make some poor decisions and get some turnovers off that. But nonetheless, Buffalo, the more talented team as of right now. So I'm threading the needle. I'm going with the Raiders. John's going with Buffalo for 40. Neither of us are really confident, so there you go for that one. So a difference, but not going to be a huge shaking one. But it would be very interesting to see, because Buffalo cannot afford to go down 0-2 in the AFC, and especially in their division. So, or just in general. But anyways, speaking of divisions, now let's go to the AFC North for a divisional matchup. It is between the Cincinnati Bengals. They're going to be at home, favored by 3.5, hosting the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens won last week. Bengals lost that dreadful game against the Cleveland Browns, aka the Elves. Nonetheless, who do you have here, John, and for how much?
I am gonna go with the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the last handful of times. I think Cincinnati and Baltimore have played, like Joe Burrow and that pass attack has had immense success. Now, I do know that some of those years, like Marlon Humphrey was injured, Marcus Peters was injured when he was there. And so this secondary is a little different than the ones they had in the past, but kind of like Buffalo, I'm expecting a bounce back from Cincinnati. I feel very confident about this one. I do like Baltimore as a team, but I know that Mark Andrews is still a little bit banged up, and I'm not quite sure how the running game situation is going to work. Obviously, Lamar is still your top runner, but they're bringing in like Melvin Gordon off the practice squad, Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, and it's just kind of the same old faces that we've seen around Baltimore for like a while, and it just seems like the run game has never really been as deadly as it once was, a handful of years ago. So all of those kind of factors make me not as confident in Baltimore's ability to do much on offense. I do think they're going to score, but I think that Cincinnati can pull away on the other end, and Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, I think those guys have a redemption game here. So I'm going Cincinnati. I'm putting 300 on it.
Well, we have our first agreement of the week because I'm also going with Cincinnati for 200. You mentioned the injuries for Baltimore. That is really scary. And I always got to factor in Cincinnati coming home after a very disappointing loss. Just the whole bounce back aspect is very real. Especially, you already mentioned that the trio, they're on offense with Burrow, Higgins, and Chase. I just feel like, especially Baltimore, they love to take chances, love to, leave their corners on islands. This isn't the team to do that. And although, as we all know, Cincinnati's offensive line is a big question mark. Once again, I'm not entirely confident in Baltimore's front four to get home without having to blitz and send extra guys. And if you do that against Joe Burrow, who is great at reading defenses, he will always find a way, usually knows where to go with the ball and gets it to the right person and makes you pay for it. So I'm with you. I think Cincinnati bounces back after that tough loss against the Browns, especially at home. So I'm only going 200. John's going 300. So we're both believing in the Bengals. Hopefully they can come through for us here against Baltimore. But now we go over to the NFC, to Detroit, where the Lions are at home, coming off that big Thursday night win against the Chiefs and a couple of days extra rest. They are favored by 5.5, hosting the Seattle Seahawks, who, as I've already mentioned, lost big against the Rams last week, especially as the favorites. So, John, who you're rolling with here and for how much?
I'm going to go with Seattle. I like Detroit, but I don't know if I'm confident enough in the Lions to think that they pull away with this kind of a margin. I think that there's going to be a little bit of a correction here for Seattle. I don't know, which I guess maybe is kind of my theme for this week, because I'm looking at my picks so far. 4 of my 5 picks, I think, lost last week so far. Anyway, so I think maybe there's a little bit of a course correction here for Seattle. I don't know if they win, but I don't think that the gap between them and the Lions is that big. And we saw that last year, to where Seattle made the playoffs and Detroit narrowly missed out. And they were, it was like them and obviously you guys, the Packers, that were like fighting for that last wild card spot. And I feel like both teams had some good offseason moves, and so I feel like both teams got a little bit better. But once again, I don't feel like there's that much of a gap. So I'm going to take Seattle. I'm only going to put 100 on it because I don't feel super confident, because I could see a world where, maybe Detroit wins by a touchdown, and so they cover in that regard. They are at home, and who knows, maybe Jahmyr Gibbs gets more involved, something along those lines. But yeah, I do think that Seattle is going to at least keep it close.
Alrighty. I'm going with Seattle also. I just think, I think they keep it close. I am worried because Detroit's offensive line we know is pretty good. And Seattle, I was very disappointed in their front four last week. I mean, the Rams were able to have success on the run game. I think we can agree, at least in regards to offensive line and running back rooms, that Seattle's got the advantage here. Now, it'll be very interesting. Sorry, Detroit. Detroit has an advantage over Seattle, excuse me. Very interesting to see. I'm trying to see the status of their tackles, because I know they did get hurt last game. Once again, this is via ESPN, and they're always questionable. But Abraham Lucas, their right tackle, he's on IR, so that's probably why they brought in Jason Peters. And then Charles Cross has turf toe, and he's week to week. So that's two scary things, but nonetheless, I just feel like Seattle, I would hope they find ways to get more creative ways to get their receivers the ball and, get them going early against Detroit. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of riding the notion that you got to bounce back at like Seattle. Seattle's too good not to bounce back. At least keep it close. They may not win this one, but keep it close against Detroit. Because especially on the flip side, Chiefs kind of showed it. And I feel like maybe Seattle can find an advantage here where they can, let's double team / take away, find creative ways to take away St. Brown, stack the box, make one of these other players beat us, make Jared Goff and his arm and throw it to someone else. So, going with the Seahawks. I'm a little more confident. I'm going with them for 200, which is very scary because I was already like, man, do I really want to put money on them again after last week? But screw it. I'll double down on Seattle. And luckily you're going with me, so I don't feel too bad. That won't be too much of a swing if they fail to do so again. So, but if they fail again, then I feel like we'll both be off Seattle because it's 2 straight weeks we've both gone. I mean, last week you went 200. Last week I went 540. This one's only standard for you, but 2 straight weeks of us believing in Seattle to handle their business. So we'll see if they do there. But now we go over back to the AFC where the LA Chargers, off that close loss against the Dolphins, they are favored by 3.5, going to Tennessee to play the Titans, who also had a very close, tough loss against the Saints. So both teams 0-1. Who do you have here, John, and for how much?
I am going to go with the Chargers. I liked what I saw out of Tennessee last week, but I didn't really like what I saw in terms of their pass defense. I like some of the talent they have, but my worry coming into the season was just the cornerback room. A lot of young guys, McCreary, Farley, Fulton, a lot of these guys who really got to step up and prove themselves, and Olave torched them. And Derek Carr had a good week, and although, once again, it was a close, tight game, and the Tennessee pick came through for me as the underdog, I do think that the Chargers not only showed the ability to run the ball effectively last week, but are going to be able to air it out this season as well. I think Kellen Moore is going to be a lot more aggressive this week, and so I could see Justin Herbert having a pretty big day against this Titans secondary because if Derek Carr, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Michael Thomas were able to do it, I can only imagine what this Chargers passing attack can do. So I'm going to go with the Chargers. I feel confident in them. I'm putting 200 on them. I think they're going to be pretty upset at the way that they lost that Dolphins game. And I don't think that the Titans pass attack poses near the threat that Tyreek Hill does. And that's really what killed the Chargers last week. Now, historically, the Chargers have not been the greatest at stopping the run, so that will be something interesting to watch out for. But I don't know. I also just don't believe in the general Titans offense as much as I previously did to think that if the Chargers are going to pass the ball a lot and have success, the Titans are going to be able to keep up. So, yeah, I'm taking the Chargers and I'm putting 200.
I'm going the opposite way. I'm going with Tennessee. I'm only going 50. I think they keep this game close. I won't be shocked if the Chargers win. If I had to pick, I would say the Chargers would win. But with 3.5 at Tennessee, I wouldn't be shocked if this is like kind of a crazy Derrick Henry game because Tyjae Spears, who they kind of cycled in last week, may miss this game. He's already missing practice. And I still have concerns, like you mentioned, about the Chargers and their run defense, especially the power run defense inside. So I just feel like Mike Vrabel is going to say, guys, we're riding Derrick Henry this week. We're going to make it ugly. It's kind of a way to protect Tannehill because he's already had a rough week 1. Put the ball less in his hands, especially because we know that the receivers, like you said, are less threatening for the Titans. And then on the flip side, be a very interesting chess match to see if the Titans can correct some of those issues. Because they did get torched a couple of times, but for the most part, they held the Saints to 17. I want to make sure they held the Saints pretty well last week, and I just think they'll keep it close, make it ugly. Don't know for sure if they'll win or not, but I'm just betting on the fact that Tennessee keeps it close, and I'm betting 50. So John's going 200 on the Chargers, going 50 on Tennessee. We'll see who pulls through, as that is a big swing right there, and a very interesting matchup stylistically. So, and like I mentioned, both teams 0-1, so very crucial for whoever win, or for both teams to get a win here and not fall to that 0-2 hole. But now, going once more back to the NFC, going to Tampa Bay, where the Bucs were victorious last week over the Vikings, and they are at home. They are favored by 2.5, hosting the Chicago Bears, who lost my Packers last week. So who do you have here, John, and for how much?
I did not know who to pick in this game, and I just kind of went with my gut, which says Chicago. I think that Tampa obviously looked somewhat impressive last week, but I don't know if I'm quite ready to buy into it. And so I think that maybe Chicago has some success. They get something going. Justin Fields maybe makes some big plays. And there you go. The Bears can maybe come out and surprise Tampa. I also find it a little interesting that the spread is only 2.5 favoring Tampa, because to me that would indicate that Vegas also believes that these teams are basically the same, like in terms of talent. Yeah. If this was a neutral field, because we talk about, home field advantages around 2.5, 3 points. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of have this gut feeling that maybe Chicago is able to even pull it out here, because I'm not quite ready to believe that Baker Mayfield's not going to come out and have some mistakes. So, yeah, I'm going to take Chicago. I'm going to put 100 on it, just a standard bet, nothing crazy. What about you?
So I'm going the opposite way. I'm going with Tampa Bay for 150. I have more confidence in their defense, and especially going against the Bears offense. I just didn't see a lot that impressed me last week for the Bears offense, especially in regards to the passing attack. And I think I would say Tampa Bay's defense at least more proven talent-wise than the Packers. And even on the flip side, like same thing. Like I just feel like, even though Baker's a big question mark, I was not impressed with the Bears' defense. I mean, that's more to be expected because we know that's more of a work in progress for them. And Tampa's got more weapons, especially coming into this game than Green Bay does. No Christian Watson and a hobbled Romeo Doubs, and then there was no Aaron Jones for basically to finish the game. Now, granted, the game was out of control, but Bears defense still looks really shaky, and I still have concerns about their offense. So I'm more confident in Tampa Bay and their defense, especially being at home. So that's why I'm going with 150. But honestly, probably I was very close to going to 100, but this is one I had. I had an extra 50. Can't take it. We had to use up all our money technically. So this is one where I kind of just threw the extra 50 because hey, Tampa Bay proved me right last week. I'll ride them again. We'll see. So another difference for John and myself there. So that'll be a fun one to see the result. Probably won't watch that one unless you're in Chicago or Tampa Bay. But nonetheless, probably the game of the early afternoon is next, and that is between the Kansas City Chiefs. They are favored by 3.5 going to Jacksonville. Obviously a rematch of the playoffs last year. Chris Jones is back. Travis Kelce is looking like he's going to be trending back to this game to play this game, although we'll see. Once again, this is Wednesday. Who knows? Nonetheless, though, John, who you rolling with here and for how much?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Chiefs. I thought about taking Jacksonville, but I do think that I'm expecting Kelce to be back. I don't know how you feel about his status. I think he's going to play in this game. I think that he's the kind of guy that's going to see the results of last week and probably, I don't know, maybe take some of the blame himself and just be like, man, like if I was there, I'm a difference maker. We win that game. And so I think he's going to come back. He's going to power through it. And for that reason, I feel confident in the Chiefs. Now, if he doesn't play, then who knows? I think that I like what I've seen out of Jacksonville, but like I said, I'm thinking that Kelce plays. And I think that when he does come back too, I'm assuming, well, actually, I don't know. I don't know what the line has baked in yet. I don't know if the line is predicting him not to play and that's why it's so low, or if they're expecting him to play and then when, if he gets ruled out, they would make it even closer to Jacksonville. I don't know. But yeah, I'm expecting him to. I'm only going to put 50 on it because I don't feel super confident in his health status. But other than that, I'm expecting him to play.
We'll say, at least let's get into according to ESPN. So could be right, wrong, whatever. as of today, September 13th, Wednesday, he was limited at practice. So I would take that. I personally take that as encouraging.
The fact that he was actually practicing.
Yeah, as opposed to not practicing, and that's why I'm also going with the Chiefs for 50. I just feel like, especially with Chris Jones back, and we still have personal questions about Jacksonville's offensive line, especially the tackles. I think that's advantage Chiefs. Granted, it was great to see Trevor Lawrence was awesome last week. Same with Calvin Ridley, so that will be interesting to see how this Chiefs secondary will hold up now that, like we mentioned in the previous episode, seems like Jacksonville has a number one, and we know that the other guys, Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, are really good too, as well as Evan Ingram. So we'll see. And then obviously last week they got ETN going as well. But on the flip side for Kansas City, I expect them to try it out, Kelsey, even if it's in a limited fashion. I expect him to be out there. And honestly, I expect Kadarius Toney to have a better game too. It was just, like I tried to allude to last episode, I feel like obviously a bad performance, but man, it was just a bad day in the office. And as someone who also has had bad days in the office, I can understand. And I expect, and it seems like Mahomes, and especially Mahomes, the guy delivering the ball, especially, but he seemed very confident still in Toney after the game, after last week. And I wouldn't be shocked if they put in a little bit extra time to kind of stabilize that confidence in Toney over the week, as well as, Sky Moore wasn't that great. I expect Kansas City to bounce back, get the crucial win, go to 1-1, especially with Chris Jones back. I think that'll be a big boost to their defense. So nonetheless, though, I'm only going 50 like you, because Jacksonville's pretty good too. And it wouldn't shock me if Jacksonville outright wins or at least keeps it close here. So we will see what happens. But nonetheless, that will definitely be the gate. That probably is the game to watch in regards to the noon slot. But now we go, speaking of Jacksonville, to some of their division rivals, and that is the Indianapolis Colts. They are favored by 1.5. They are going to Houston to play the Texans. So both teams 0-1. Obviously, Colts coming off that tough loss against Jacksonville last week, while the Texans kind of got blown out by the Ravens. Who are you going with here, and for how much?
I'm going to take the Texans. This is just a game where they're at home. I don't feel entirely confident either way, and it's kind of like Washington and Arizona last week. If I don't really feel confident, I'm probably just going to take the underdog and just see what happens. So, yeah, I'm taking the Texans.
Gotcha. I'm going with Indy just because I feel like Richardson, there's a lot more dynamicness with him. And then we saw Pittman had a really good game last week, and I expect, even if attention is shaded towards Pittman, maybe it's an Alec Pierce game where they may hit him a couple times deep. And then we still saw the Colts defense have moments last week, with DeForest Buckner and the gang. And I'm just, not that I'm not sold on C.A. Stroud. I think he actually had a pretty solid performance, but there's just not a lot of weapons for Stroud that I trust, outside Damian Pierce. But once again, he's more of inside between the tackles running, so it's a passing league. And Dalton Schultz is their best option, I feel like, / their most dangerous threat as of right now. And, we all know, especially, he's more just a short to intermediate guy anyway. So he's not going to be the type of tight end like a Kittle or one of the elite guys that you can at least throw to him 8-9 times a game. And, one of those he's going to break off for a big run. So nonetheless, I'm going with Indy. I'm going with them for 200, which is also obviously very shaky considering these are both 0-1 teams, both with rookie quarterbacks. So I'm sure there will be some wackiness with this one, and very interested to see what the line is for overall turnovers in terms of betting. So nonetheless, big difference for us there between the Texans and Colts. Once again, John's taking the Houston Texans for 50, taking the Colts in the Indianapolis